It is show time, and my question for you tonight is what works best for you, managing tasks or managing energy? I don't remember where I heard that expression a few months ago, but that rang so much emotions in me when I heard that. Because too often in society, we do look at everything we have to do, and then we plan our day with respect to our to-do list. And just before we continue, I'm going to just check for uh, the sound, and it does work. So let's say that again. Too often we plan our day with the list of things we have to do. And then sometimes we pick either the most important or we pick the first one on the list and we go about our day. The difficulty with that is that depending on the task we have to do, sometimes we have to focus, sometimes we have to be physically active, sometimes we have to be with people, sometimes we have to focus in silence because we have to do some planning, sometimes we have to help others, guide others, or just do what needs to get done. And all these activities requires a different level of energy expenditure, and too often that's something that I used to forget. So as an introvert, I tend to look at what I have to do with the things I need to focus by myself and things I need to focus with people. So I'm going to divide tonight the episode in three parts. First one will be about learning, the other one will be about teaching, and the third one will be about leadership, which is the different ways I've done so far. And if I remember well, this is our fourth podcast, and welcome to this show today. If you haven't had a chance to subscribe to my YouTube channel, please do so. And you'll see great content happen all the time. And throughout the show, if you have a chance, you can write comments in the chat below the video so I can answer your questions as we go along. So let's see. Managing tasks versus managing energy. So how does it apply to learning? As a high school teacher, and I've taught in all the way to grade 4, 7, and 8 as well, learning is something that is very important, especially in a school setting, but also in the real world, as an employee or as a leader. As if you're in school, I know that different people have different rhythm in their day. So sometimes the morning, some have a lot of energy, and for some, the energy comes in the afternoon. Some people are very tired at the end of the afternoon, whereas for others, evenings is where they have lots of energy. Same thing with adults. If you work in a company, some people have different energy level during the day. So if that's the case, if we have to learn when there's a focus that is needed, then you need to figure out when is the best time for you to focus on learning. So for example, for me, the best time for me to learn is in the morning. So maybe between 10 in the morning and about noon. So that's the best time for me to learn. And the reason for that is that I'm awake, I have done a few things already, and I'm ready to learn something new for the day. That's the best time for me. And that's why, in some ways, I have my YouTube channel where I do science in French, and this show is at 10 o'clock. So from 10 to 11, I share information I know, and it's outstanding. I learn because at the same time I need to show the topic, but I also teach, and it's kind of fun. So mornings are great for me if I have to learn. Now, some people, it's different. Some people in the morning, they have a lot of energy. So what happens is that they have the jitter. They have to move, and therefore it's very hard for them to focus. And in the afternoon, it's so much easier for them. For example, I had a student once, and during the day, he was always getting up, moving around, and he had all this energy. And I remember for the longest time, the best thing I could think of was for him to have a standing desk, and he could just do what he needed to do, and standing up, walking around. And sometimes I would just say, hey, go for a little walk, even go outside for a minute, come back in, and we'll continue. And that changed at some point when his parents and coach realized that he liked swimming. And then he started to swim between 5 and 7 in the morning. And interestingly enough, he loved swimming and he loved to do that in the morning. So the consequences of that is that when his practice finished at 7, then he had to use a lot of his energy. Then he would go and have breakfast and he would come to school. And you know what? He was calm for the rest of the day. And that was quite amazing because just by a change of his schedule, that made a big difference with him, what he liked to do, and being able to focus when he needed to. And the only change was to do sports in the morning before he came to school. For example, I know a lot of students who are during the day, if there's people around them, then having the task to work on project is great because they are with people. But if you ask them to learn something, sometimes the best time for them is between 8 and 9 at night. And by that time, they've talked to all the people they needed to talk to, they work on the project, and then they feel that they have a bit more time, a bit more energy, and therefore it's a great time for them to learn. And that's why it makes it hard for some because by the time they go back to school and they have to do a test, for example, then they may not be the morning may not be the best time for them, whereas evening class may be better. So that's why sometimes when you think of college, university, sometimes it's better at night. Now, if you work in a workplace, your energy also changes. Some people they love to do the training they have to do in the morning, or some in the afternoon. And many people say, you know what, I love to do the training or listening to video at the end of the day between, I don't know, 9 and 10 when I've done everything I have to do and I'm a bit more peaceful to focus on the training. And it's quite important because by doing that, an individual says, okay, I have to do that, but they're actually choosing when it is the best time for them to learn. So if you are about to learn something, a new skill, you want to learn about how to do a new sport, try to focus on when is the best time for you to do it. So if it is in the morning, then focus on the morning. People say, oh, get up at 4 or 5, go to the gym before you start the day. For some, it's amazing. Others, they say, well, school starts in high school at 8 o'clock where I work. And some people love it. I personally love it. But I do know as well that some students would love to start at 9:30. And the reason for that is they know that they are a bit more awake at night. They go to bed at 11 or 12. And what happens is that they are tired in the morning. So when they go back home, they have a snooze for a couple of hours and then they can go on for the evening. So for them, that works that way. Same thing with in the workplace. When we do learning, it could be in a training, learning how to do a new job, learning to work with other people. Because when you're part of a new team, you have to learn how things go. A new project, you have to figure out when it's the best time to do so. For me, when I know what I have to learn, I plan it. The best time for me to learn is in the morning. So if I need to chat with people, I put the chatting with people in the afternoon because I have a bit less energy. It's harder for me to focus. So time for meetings and chats are best there. So if I have to focus at school, often what I do, and I'll talk about it in the next segment, is that I focus on the work I need to do by myself in the morning, then the learning just before lunch, and then if in the best world, when I have done that in the afternoon, I'm open and I have energy to do the discussions, conversations with people, because I need the time to do so, and I need the energy. But at the same time, I have put my learning in the morning, so I thought about what works best for me. And usually by the time I get to 7 o'clock at night, there's not much else I can do. That's my rhythm. So if you can find your rhythm when you learn best, that's the best way. My second segment is about teaching. Now, I do talk about the fact that I'm a teacher in high school, but everybody in their own ways are teachers. Parents are teachers, counselors are teachers, we have therapists are teachers, we have our friends are teachers. Everybody teaches us something one way or the other. So if you have to teach, in some ways you need to prepare. And if you need to prepare, sometimes you need to meet with other people, other teachers, other team members, so that you can organize how the training and the teaching will happen. For me, I love teaching in the morning. Uh, the reason for that is if so if I have a chance to focus, I focus early. And by the time I get to 9 o'clock, then I'm ready to learn if I need to learn, but also teach to my students. Because that's the time when I have the most energy. Now, when I say teaching, I talk about the fact that it's me sharing information, guiding other people to do what they have to do. So it's not as much in the conversation, but my energy level is always better in the morning when I have to give some output. So that was best for me. And in the afternoon, that's when I have less energy as an introvert. And then I do like to have discussions and conversations. And it's interesting because if I have several courses, often I tend in the morning to do a bit more lesson in my classes, whereas in the afternoon, given the same class, then I'll have more conversations. Because in the morning, I'm more thinking and I'm more in my mind. And in the afternoon, I'm more in the discussion because I have done the reflecting in the morning. So it's interesting to see how, if you have the same class, things are different in some ways. So the same thing. So as a teacher, I like to do that. And if I have to prep my classes, I like to do it in the afternoon because by that time, it's just prepping, photocopying, organizing a few thoughts together. What am I going to teach next? It's just the organizing. And then I prep that so that in the morning I can review, learn what I have to learn. If I'm not quite there, I can learn what I'm going to do in the next couple of days so that I'm ready for the cycle. And for the same way, by doing that, I have a lot of energy in the morning and the afternoon. And for me, the best time to go and be active, either to the gym or go for a walk outside, is in the afternoon. Going for a walk outside and being active before 8 o'clock, it's not me. I've tried it many, many times. So you have to figure out what works for you. So if you're a trainer, you're someone that is guiding others, you need to figure out what works best for you. I know some people that they love to meet people in the morning because that's where they have the most energy, they have the best output, the best guidance they can give. And in the afternoon, they have less energy, so they prefer to prepare for the following day. Other people, it's the other way around. They prefer the morning to prepare, and then afternoons are there for the sharing and training. And that's important because once you know that, then you can organize your workday to see, okay, I have to do training. What's the best time for me to learn something? And what's the best time for me to teach or train others? Because if you know your rhythm, then you are no longer managing tasks of things to do, but you're managing your energy. And by managing your energy, then it's so much better for the people with you. Now, you have to keep in mind that as a trainer, you need to be mindful of how you manage your energy, but you also need to figure out what is the energy rhythm of your students, the energy rhythm of who is in your training session. So, for example, at where I work, often at the beginning of the year, there's a lot of training videos we have to do, and I can't do those in the morning because if I do them in the morning, I watch them very intently to absorb what it is, but I'm just exhausted for the rest of the day. So I usually do what I have to do in the morning and do the training in the afternoon. So that's what's worked best for me. But if you're part of a team, it's important for you to be able to read your crowd, because by reading the crowd, it tells you how to organize how you're going to do your lessons, how you're going to do your training. So if you do online training and all you do is watch a little video and then you click every 45 seconds, at some point you might lose some people there. And that's why, as a trainer, as a teacher, you need to figure out, okay, what is the rhythm of the class and how can you make it work? It's like a dance. So usually in my classes, I like in the first 5 minutes, time to regroup, bring ideas for students to start thinking about what we are doing. Sometimes it's just the agenda on the board. Sometimes it's an article we're reading. And the reason for that, it's slowly I get the people to start focusing on what we have to do. And right after that, we have a quick discussion and we go straight in the learning we have to do. And in midway, so about 35, 40 minutes after that, I always give them a break. Nobody can learn for 75 minutes in a row, especially if it is their second or their third class. Same for you as a teacher. I need the 5 minutes. They certainly need it too. And the 5 minute gives them a chance to reset. People that need to get up and move around, they can do so. People that say, okay, I've done a lot of focusing, let's see what else I can do. And I keep the second part of the class for discussions. People are doing group work so that people can be there for each other. If you're doing meetings and training, think about that as well. How can you organize your training session so that some people are there to start focusing on what they need to do, and then being able to say, okay, there's a rhythm to the class, and people get used to the rhythm. And once the rhythm is there, it's quite outstanding. So when I start a class, for example, and it's a bit more in the learning session, people are a bit more focusing. And then after the break, we have discussions, group work, and so on. And I have to realize that some people, they're not in, like for my morning class, some people are not too talkative. So some of my students in the morning, they just prefer in the second half to do personal work time. They don't want to work in groups, and they want to be able to work by themselves on their projects. And it works very nicely. And I remember a couple of years ago, I had the students that were like this in the morning. In the afternoon, they were completely opposite when they were in my extracurricular class. I have the SEM club, and they were chatting with everybody, group work, and being leaders in what we were doing. And the reason for that is the morning was not the best for them for conversations and interaction. However, the afternoon was what was best. So they knew about that, and I knew to respect that. Too often, so sometimes when you're in a group of friends or in your family, often there's that expression, you need to read the crowd. Reading the crowd tells you a little bit that you get out of your mind, and then you see how people are doing. But not just what they are doing, but also how they are using the energy with what you're doing at that time. A couple of days ago, I was doing a lesson. Then I was looking at the class, and somehow they were not involved completely. So I looked at what I was doing and said, okay, so I asked them, do you think this is a boring lesson? And it was some dodges and so on. And then we talked about that. And I agreed that it could have been better. They agreed that it could have been better. We all laughed about it. And I made some changes the day after, and it was much better. So at the same time, I'm learning from them, and they're learning from me, but knowing that we can work together so we can manage our energy. That is very important. So let's see. My third part of this podcast tonight is about leadership. When I think about leadership, it's leadership in what you do in your life, leadership in what you do in your learning, leadership in what you do in helping others and teaching, if you're a teacher, or guiding other groups. And the idea here is, if you pay attention to the way you are leading, it allows you to better understand who you are, but also how people are around you. I think it's important. So here, my 2 points are, as a leader, sometimes people love to manage tasks. And often they can be micromanaging the people working with them. So what happens is that it's about a task, and the human factor is set aside for some people. There are the people that other leaders, what they do is they manage energy and emotions and how people feel, and they are in the group. And often I see people that tend to macro manage as people that can read the room and work with the energy of the crowd. Because if you can macro manage, that means that you are leading, but you step back a little bit, then you can observe. You can observe how people work, how people learn, how people train, and then you can do that to, as a leader, to fit in how they are. Because as a leader, in some ways, leadership can be, well, at some point you tell people what they need to do and they get it done. That's a style of leadership that has a place for that. As a teacher, sometimes we say, well, here's a project, this is what we have to do, and this is by what time this needs to be done. On the other hand, once we have those ideas, then I can let them go saying, okay, we know what we have to do. So I'm here to help them, guide them into their work, their rhythm, to say, okay, it's time for research. Instead of researching, I'd rather go to get a book. I'd rather go and talk with a friend. I'd rather go and watch a video, because there's so many different ways to learn. And that's important, because when we have a project and students are presenting those projects, at that time, they'll be teaching you. And when they're teaching you, you want them to be able to find their creative self. What's the point in asking people to do a project if they cannot use their creative self? Now, I do understand that if you are a mechanics and you need to change a muffler, you know what? There's not much creativity there. Even though I know some amazing mechanics with amazing cars and they're working on these cars, and their creativity comes out very nicely, either with colors or with the piece of equipment they use on their car. So the whole idea here is, as a leader, how do you manage your energy, but how do you manage the other people's energy? And that's quite important as well. So as a leader, how do I manage my energy? Well, I do know that as an introvert, sometimes I need to be aware that I love to focus on what I have to focus and when it works for me. I also realize that sometimes I need to walk away and be in my own little zone with nobody around. I do understand that, because too often, if there are too many people around me for too long, then it's draining in some ways. So I need to figure out, okay, how can I manage my energy to figure out, okay, this is what I need to do. Now, in taking care of your energy level, in some ways you have to do micro managing and macro managing. When I say about macro managing, you need to figure out the rhythm throughout the day. What is your energy throughout the day? And at some point on weekends, you need to have rest days. And sometimes you need vacation time where you need to be doing your own thing. And sometimes it's just in evenings where you need to step away from work, from sometimes family, from other commitments. But many times you have to look at micro managing our energy. So for that, for example, some people say, okay, I can have great conversations. I'm going to make a few phone calls. And as soon as I have done 2 phone calls, then I need to do this paperwork, or I need to be able to focus on another task. The reason for that is, if you do 10 phone calls, you know that you're going to be very tired. Or for some, they'll be very energized. So you need to be able to be aware of how your energy level goes as the day goes by, like in every 10 minutes or every hour. And then you have to have a big picture of your energy level during the day, but also in the season. Because some people that it changes throughout the month. Some people, they have more energy in some weeks, less energy in others. And then you need to be mindful of that. Some people, the cycles can be a bit longer. So for a couple of months, they have more energy, so they can focus on a few projects, but they know that they need to finish them, because sometimes there's a couple of months where they have less energy and they can manage much less. And for that, you need to be mindful of who you are, appreciate your energy level, because at the end of the day, you're there for you, so that in the long run, you're happy and you get things done. But also realize that other people around you, they see you as a model, and they want to know, okay, if that person can do it, I can certainly do it as well. So if you have enjoyed this podcast tonight, thank you very much for joining in. Put a comment below with any questions or clarification questions you may have. At this time, I'm looking into having this podcast on YouTube. I'm not sure where I'm going to post them. So if some of you have ideas on where I can put the podcasts, which platforms, I'm always looking to learn to see where I can do that. On this, thank you very much for being here, and I'll see you at 7:30 next Wednesday. On this, be great, be amazing, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.